Hello, and welcome to Sacred Mindshift Circle. I'm your host, Dahlia Deborah Donalds. And today's guest is a biochemist and natural healing mentor who helps people restore their health naturally through personalized mentoring, herbal remedies, and education. She's actually been a guest once before on the show, and she's joining us again. She handcrafts tea blends, healing salves, and other wellness products using herbs. She offers a range of ebooks and masterclasses designed to empower those dealing with stress and hormonal imbalances. Her mission is to help people reconnect with their body's natural wisdom. Please join me in welcoming again Hannah Chehab. How are you, Hannah?
I am good, Dahlia. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to you before, I was like really interested in like delving into another topic, another aspect of healing with herbs. I don't know how your business has been going lately, but I think you said that you started a new initiative that you were getting your herbs grown from Morocco, like fresh and everything. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So I've been diversifying. So now I have some farms. Everything is woman-led that is overseas. So India, Morocco, and then also regenerative farms, like small farms in South Florida. Yes.
Okay.
And the goal is hopefully in the near future is having my own farm where I'm growing my own herbs.
Mm-hmm. And well, for the people who didn't watch the other podcast that you were on, just introduce yourself a little bit and explain how you got interested in this whole area in your studies and how you turned into being a naturalist.
It all really started because of my own natural healing journey. I was dealing with multiple health issues growing up, and there just came a point where I realized that conventional approaches weren't giving me the full picture. They were just managing my symptoms, but not resolving what was actually going on underneath. And once I did like a little bit of research, I was like, well, if I just heal the root cause and nature has given us all of the healing methods, then I won't have to deal with this for the rest of my life and I can live a vibrant life all again. So I started studying plants through the lens of biochemistry so that I can really understand the mechanisms and the pathways of what goes on a cellular level. So I can then understand how to harness nature's power. Like I don't randomly choose an herb to help with a certain thing. I choose it because of a cellular understanding. Um, and once I healed a lot that was going on in my own health, it really opened my eyes to we're not educated as a system and as a community and as a people that we our bodies are meant to heal. Like we're not meant to reach a certain age and then you get to that age and you have to have arthritis and you have to lose your joint mobility or you have to have type 2 diabetes. It's really if you are given knowledge and you understand, okay, why is that happening? You can heal yourself and you can live a vibrant life, regardless of age, regardless of whatever.
And so lately, I've been watching a lot of your videos, especially on Instagram, and you've been talking a lot, especially about your own experience and how you use the herbs, especially as someone who you would say are you on the spectrum or you just have ADHD, or how would you
I've
describe it or
so
describe
I've never
yourself?
been like tested to be on the spectrum, but I was diagnosed with ADHD and severe anxiety at the age of 18. And this was like in the beginning of my studies. So I was really quite innocent then, and I listened to the doctor. The doctors put me on three stimulants a day, and then that just increased my anxiety. So then they put me on another three like downers a day to help with the anxiety, and I was on it for about 6 months. And I just remember like waking up one day, and I'm like, I am not me. Like I don't feel good. I am always jittery. I It's crazy because medicine affects each one of us differently. And, like it might, I just might have gotten like a bad reaction to it, but I was like, I can't do this. Like, this is not possible. So then I completely weaned off of the medication and I started to heal myself naturally, but I started to understand and try to be more kind to my brain. Okay, why is this going on? Okay, is it the environment? Is it how I'm treating my brain? Is it that I'm not giving myself the care that I need? And I'm sure a lot of us women can relate is we are born as caregivers, but in this society, it's something that's like demanded of us. Like we have to give and get not necessarily get nothing in return, but if we try to take care of ourselves, we're shunned. If we try to do self-care, if we say no, we're bad people. And I feel like that's why a lot of women nowadays are being diagnosed ADHD, especially at a later age, is because their nervous systems are out of whack from years and years and years of having to give and not honor their system, not honor their hormones, not be allowed to rest and digest, to where finally, after their nervous system being abused for so long, then they have these symptoms. They go to a doctor. Doctor, I mean, you can't when you're diagnosed with ADHD. It's not like a blood test or anything. It's just you give these symptoms. You're with the doctor for like 5 minutes. You tell them what you're experiencing, and the doctor's like, oh, you have ADHD, here's this medication. But there's no real conversation about, oh, well, here's what increases those symptoms, and here's why we got here. So it was it's been about 10 years now since I started trying to heal my brain with the ADHD, and not necessarily heal because it's just supporting, my brain with the ADHD. And it's been amazing. And now it's to the point where I don't feel like my brain is broken or like I'm broken or I can't do everything that I want to do because I can't focus or I have brain fog or I can't sit down for X amount of time and do like deep work, you know?
Yeah, like honestly, I do have some knowledge of what ADHD looks like maybe with young children. I've never actually thought about what it looks like with an adult. You'd be surprised, I guess, that there are a lot of adults who aren't even officially diagnosed that are in society and maybe like, when they're reacting, we don't think about like, okay, it could be because of this or because of that. So I know you talked about like brain fog and, certain things of like anxiety are symptoms of ADHD. When it comes to like children, I've just seen them be a little bit restless and they move and they can't keep their attention span in one place. Talk to me a little bit about, was this what you were also experiencing? Is this what a lot of the adults, women experience? Especially, imagine you have your whole household. You have to deal with kids, you have to deal with this. Is that what a lot of women are feeling right now? Like that kind of are they similar, those symptoms?
So with kids, most children that get diagnosed with ADHD are actually boys. And the reason they get diagnosed is because they can't sit in a place for too long and focus. But if we understand their psychological development at that moment, boys aren't meant to just sit and focus. Like they have a lot of energy. So then we automatically go and we say, oh, well, he's ADHD. Let's put him on Ritalin. Let's put him on this. But then if we understand that most kids, it's all a systemic problem, kind of. And this is where it goes back to is we are expecting certain behavior in certain environments that are just abnormal. So like for women, for example, some of the things that she may be experiencing is like inability to focus, to complete tasks, starting the laundry but not being able to finish it, doing multiple things at once. Like if she was a homemaker, for example, starting breakfast, but then she goes and starts this project, but then she walks by the bathroom and she notices that the toilet needs cleaning. So she starts cleaning the toilet. And then she has like these 9 tasks that she started without ever completing one task. For women that, aren't homemakers, that they don't have kids, it's a lot of impulsivity. So a lot of people that are diagnosed with ADHD have bad financial control, emotional outburst, and a a difficulty in like regulating emotional behavior. But like in children, what we also notice is like sensory sensitivity, trouble transitioning between activities, and um, discovering routines and sticking to a routine. And the biggest reason why I started educating a lot on ADHD, my toddler is about to turn 4. And in the beginning of the year, I noticed some symptoms of that would diagnose you as ADHD. And it got me thinking a lot. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want my son to be on the pill. I want him to be prepared for life, because that's your job as a parent, is preparing them for life. And that's where a lot of my knowledge and more approach of harnessing herbs for ADHD, but also creating the right environment for a child that has ADHD. For example, a child that has ADHD in the toddler phases and the early adolescence phases, there's a lot of like tantrums. And I noticed, okay, if if there is a difficulty transitioning from, let's say, screen time or playing to bath time, then one thing that I started implementing with my own son is, okay, timers, and speaking to them, letting them know what's going to happen, because that predictability is going to support their nervous system, so that you're not shocking their nervous system, and it's going to reduce the tantrums. So like now, we have timers going on. Okay. And a lot of verbal confirmation. Hey, Luca, in 5 minutes, we're going to go take a bath. I don't, check the clock all the time. But then I'm like, okay, hey, Luca, in 1 minute, we're going to take a bath. And I've noticed like a huge decrease in the tantrums, to the point now, inconsistency and routine. And kids thrive on that, but also ADHD brains thrive on routine. So it's just like a system of not only harnessing herbs, but biohacking, um, in order just to support your brain. At the end of the day, it's with natural healing, you just want to support your body so that it acts as we want it to act.
So, like in comparison to a lot of the conventional medicines, for example, which kind of just cover up the symptoms to a certain extent, but they're not really working on the issues that cause it. When you recommend your herbs, do you also suggest like routine, regulation? You give other kind of advice for, I guess mentoring for parents and for adults to combine it with, right?
Yes, 100%. So even though like I'm a scientist when it comes to paper, I believe mind, body, and spirituality all comes together. And a big part of that is a healthy nervous system. And especially with us parents that do have children that are either on the spectrum or do have ADHD at home, they co-regulate with us, whether we realize it or not. They feel our energies, whether we want them to feel that energy or not. So it first comes to, as a parent, make sure your system is regulated. Make sure that you are doing what you need to in order to honor yourself. And then that bleeds into the child as well. And if you have like a dysregulated nervous system, which many of us do, and we don't even realize it until our nervous system is not dysregulated anymore, it really amplifies the symptoms of ADHD. And I've noticed in a lot of cases is it's not necessarily like, you have extreme ADHD. Sometimes it's just deficiencies. Sometimes your neurotransmitters are deficient and you just need a little herbal support in the neurotransmitters. Sometimes it's your nervous system is out of whack and you just need to heal your nervous system in order for those ADHD symptoms not to bleed into your life in a negative way. And so I'm really big on teaching women, especially, how to heal your nervous system. And like the biggest thing is understanding that our bodies are natural, even though we live in cities now, even though we have technology and everything, we're all biology. So it's just understanding that our bodies are natural, and like for the biggest thing that I always recommend is, when you wake up, the first hour of your day, especially if you have ADHD, slow, completely slow. Like, go outside, have the sun come in your eyes, because what that does is that resets your circadian rhythm and that helps your cortisol balance. So if that's balanced out and you allow it to naturally dip, then your nervous system is going to be able to function properly, and those ADHD symptoms aren't going to be as prevalent as they would be if your nervous system and your cortisol levels were out of whack. Another big thing is making sure you have protein in your diet, making sure that you have breakfast, not drinking coffee 60 to 90 minutes before, after you wake up, like giving yourself like a period of time. And alongside with the herbs, you start healing the system to where you don't deal with the negatives of having an ADHD brain. I always say ADHD is a superpower. A lot of creatives are diagnosed with ADHD, and that's just because the way that our brains are wired is completely different. It doesn't mean that we're broken, but it just means that the system that's created isn't for us. It's like there's that analogy of um an elephant and a fish, and it's like a test, and the teacher asks the elephant and the fish to climb a tree. It's like, well, neither of those are suited to be able to climb a tree, but that doesn't take away from its intelligence and its ability.
Okay, yeah, and that's a really good analogy. And I just had a memory when you were talking about that and talking about all these kind of things because I remember my daughter actually when we were in New York, now you might not notice it because she's like verbal and she speaks, but when she was like 1.5 to 2, they thought that she was on the spectrum, so much so that we were doing like some of like the programs and all of that. And I remember I would go on Facebook and I would go looking in all these kind of forums of like different moms with like different suggestions. And one of the
Mhm.
things that a lot of them were suggesting were like supplements, vitamins, and all of these kinds of things, right? And
Yeah.
herbs themselves, you call it sometimes like brain food, right? When
Yeah.
you say that it's like they have deficiencies. So tell me a little bit about what is the process when you go about selecting the herbs and then, applying them to your, how it's like you said, it's not just like a one like general herbal remedy that you give to everyone. You do kind of like modify it per person, right?
I do, but the one that I have now, I kind of made it broad so that it's more of supporting not only your brain but your whole system um as a whole. So and when I look at this and I try to formulate something, yes, there's often like deficiencies and imbalances involved, particularly with dopamine and norepinephrine, but it's also about how the body's producing it, how it's using it, and how it's recycling those neurotransmitters, and also like the inflammation, the gut health. Because if we just give the body the nutrients like magnesium, zinc, omega 3s, they do play like a major role in these pathways that affect ADHD, but sometimes our body doesn't know how to utilize them properly because maybe our gut isn't healthy enough in order to do it. So like the generic brain fuel that I've created kind of targets everything, the inflammation, the amino acids, the 9 amino acids that you need, but also healing the nervous system as well. So like for example, like there's a lot of mushrooms that I use about 8 mushrooms, and those are not only amazing for like nerve growth factor and neuroplasticity, which really helps with brain development and like damaged brain cells, but it's also incredible for your gut. And back 20 years ago, we used to believe that, so we have this vagus nerve, and that's how the brain and the gut communicates. And we used to believe that it was majority, like 90% of the brain speaking to the gut, but now we understand that 90% of the communication that's going along in the vagus nerve is actually the gut speaking to the brain. And we now know that 90% of the serotonin that your body needs or your brain needs in order to feel happy, productive, in order to have emotional regulation is all created in your gut. So if your gut is imbalanced, you could be taking, a neurotropic, but you're not healing that part. So you're not really healing the nerve, the whole system, let's say. So with the brain fuel that I created, I made sure that we're healing every single aspect of our body because we're all interconnected webs. So like I said, the mushrooms, those also they're great for the brain, but they're also amazing for the gut, and they introduce good, healthy gut flora that your brain needs in order to synthesize the serotonin. There is Bacopa in there. Bacopa reduces hyperactivity, but it also improves your memory. So not only are you helping your brain currently, but you're also protecting your brain from things like dementia or I want to say arthritis. I'm sorry, um, Alzheimer's. And then there is like ashwagandha in there, and ashwagandha helps regulate your cortisol response and it reduces your inflammation. So we're healing that nervous system, we're supporting that nervous system, but we're also healing the inflammation because when our brains are highly inflamed due to environmental toxins, food toxins, stress, our brains are not going to function properly. And then I also add things in there like moringa, and that provides like all of the essential nutrients that our brains and our bodies need in order to function. So we're not dealing with any deficiencies, but it also helps reduce systemic inflammation long term because it has like chlorhydric acid and it has quercetin. So it's not only helping your brain, but it's helping like the rest of your system. And that goes back to, the premise of natural healing is it's not, hey, I'm going to just take this for a couple of weeks and I'm going to feel fine. It's, hey, I'm going to harness nature's power, not only through herbs, but through, the biohacking in order to restore the balance and heal the root cause of whatever's causing me to have these symptoms that is affecting my life.
And one of the benefits also of using herbs is that normally, I mean, unless someone's like going overboard, they basically don't have a lot of side effects in comparison to the medicine that's out there for, ADHD. I mean, most of the time, if they do give you certain things, sometimes, I've seen kids look like they're completely like sedated or
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like they like
Personality.
all the way down. Like, no, it's ridiculous. So you're not really being yourself, like you said before. Tell me about, for example, in terms of like, if you want to second anything related to that, the comparisons that you've seen and I guess like the results that you've seen in comparison to using conventional medicine and with your clients.
Okay. So, I'll give this is one of my favorite clients, and it's a really good um story to give because he's not like an ideal client. This gentleman, we'll call him David. David came, he doesn't believe in herbal medicine whatsoever. Um, but he had migraines his whole life. And he was a successful entrepreneur. He came to America as an immigrant, created, the whole American dream. And then by the time that he came to me, he suffered about 4 years of just devastating family deaths, family traumas, and a nervous system that was like completely out of whack. Um, he went to the doctor before he came and saw me. The doctor put him on an antidepressant. He didn't even know he was being put on an antidepressant. Put him on an antidepressant. That kind of like helped out. Slowly went back to him because he wasn't feeling great. He was suffering with things like he said that he couldn't manage stress anymore. He just got angry. He couldn't speak anymore. When it came to his business, he just wanted to sell his business and give it up. He said he's getting old. He was at the time 57 turning 50, 68, if I'm not mistaken. And he basically had this whole mentality of, I'm old, I'm done. This is what happens when you get old. Um, and also, his doctor said that he might have ADHD as well. He has depression, he has anxiety. So by the time that he came to me, his wife kind of pushed him to come to me because he didn't believe in herbal medicine or anything like that. So he came along my way. I spoke to him. I heard everything that he was dealing with. I mean, it was to the point where he wasn't sleeping at all. He would just wake up and just think about things, and the doctors wanted to put him on sleep medication too. Fighting with the wife. I mean, it got to a point where, you know, they were like high school sweethearts, and it ended up to where they, like they just wanted to get divorced. He didn't want anything. He didn't feel anything. He was just so emotionally drained from everything that he's gone through, and he didn't have the right support. So when he came to me, I made him something similar to brain fuel, but I tweaked some things because he is older. I added a lot more anti-inflammatory herbs to it, so a lot more like turmeric and black pepper, as well as I added a lot more things that will help with his memory, because he was saying that he doesn't remember anything, and his mother passed 2 years prior because of dementia, so he wanted something that was going to help prevent that. So we did a lot more bacopa, we did a lot more rosemary in there. And I remember the first week he started it, he reached out and he was like, I feel good. I'm not like angry all the time, but it's not really, it's not giving me the results that I want. And I'm like, it's fine. You know, continue doing it, and you'll feel fine. He reaches out to me, like, I believe it was like a month or 2 months after. And he was just telling me about how he's on TikTok now with his business, and he's able to manage his business, and now he has these new ideas with his business, and he's able to implement these ideas, and he's not being overwhelmed so much anymore, and he feels like he can manage the stress. He's not freaking out and becoming so angry over very small minuscule things. The relationship with the wife, changed, and then the wife reached out to me too, and she was like, I don't know what happened to my husband, but he became the person that I've always wanted. And she gave the analogy, not the analogy, but the example of, he was always in his brain. And then the last 4 years that he was dealing with everything, she didn't exist to him because he was dealing with a lot in his brain. She said that finally, when they're walking, before he used to just like run and scurry along, not really thinking of it, and leave her behind. And she said that when they walk, he holds hands, he's talking to her, he's listening to her. And then, a couple of months after that, she reached out to me and she said, even, in the bedroom, things are working and functioning properly again. And he's actually there and everything. And the reason why I want to give that story is just to highlight that, some of the things that we deal with, we don't give grace to ourselves. Like David, for example, he went through years of, 3 of his siblings passed away in the matter of 2 years. Then his mother passed away, and then he lost his home, and then his business was failing. And, we don't honor what we go through. And then we just kind of, like they say, like, pull your bootstraps on and tie them up and just keep going. So I wanted to highlight that, sometimes we have to take a break. And mind you, like 2 weeks after he started the protocol, he did go on vacation and took a break. That's one thing that I recommended. I was like, business is not doing good. That's fine. They don't need you. Go take a vacation with your wife. Go somewhere where you've never been before. And he gave himself that relief that he needed physically, but then he also give his body and his brain the support that he needed, on an herbal and a cellular level. And it's just to show that we can live vibrant again. Despite what we've been through or the symptoms that we're experiencing now, doesn't mean that we're broken. It doesn't mean that we're going to be like this forever. And it doesn't mean that we need to listen to a doctor and go on pharmaceuticals for the rest of our life, because the pharmaceutical is just suppressing the symptom. It's not addressing the root cause. Like for him, for example, he was on an antidepressant, just made it worse. It didn't address the root cause. But then he took a herbal formula that he's still taking now, and he doesn't want to stop it because it's amazing. And it gave him everything that he needed without these negative side effects that a serotonin, that an SSRI or an antidepressant that would give you low libido, for example, that's not a side effect that you'd want to have when you're already dealing with depression, anxiety, marital problems. That's just another added stress, you know? So it's stories like David that's the reason why I do what I do, is to show people and help people live vibrantly again. Life is meant to be enjoyed, and at any age, not just when we're young, not just when we are in our prime, but at all ages, we're supposed to live vibrant and not feel like our like bodies are working against us, which now I feel like we're trained to believe that once we get a little older, or once we have kids, or once X, Y, and Z happens, like you're supposed to have these symptoms. You're supposed to feel like that, you know?
Yeah, and definitely we shouldn't be like getting harvested by these pharmaceutical companies either, because for them, they love it. They love it. And they encourage us to do things so that we are in that condition that we need to depend on them for the rest of our lives. One thing that you were mentioning, I don't know if you actually said it was like in 2 weeks, but more or less like in terms of the results and how soon most people begin to see like the change. You would say it's like it's not something like a magic pill overnight. Like it does take like a week or two or something like this, right? With effective.
So it just depends on your body, your specific symptoms, and how imbalanced you are. There are some people that try it and they email me and they're like, I notice a difference the first day. There are some people that, it takes them about a week to 2 weeks in order to like really feel the change. But the most important thing is when it comes to natural healing, you're healing the root cause. So you're healing things on a cellular level. So you might not feel the change physically and in a way that you can quantify, but but with natural healing and with healing a root cause, it does take a while. Like that's the difference between herbs and pharmaceuticals. They target one compound, and that compound acts on one pathway, and then what that does is that it just forces your body to activate that pathway. What nature does, and this is why I love not just using one herb for like remedies, but I love using like a plethora of herbs because of the synergy. But it's multiple compounds that are going to give you the same results, but through different pathways, so that you're not stressing a pathway and you're not going to suffer from like liver detox, like liver problems or anything like that, like you would with pharmaceuticals. So it's just all dependent on the person and on how imbalanced they are to begin with, and also like the biohacking. Like if you start and you really focus on molding your environment to feel how you want to feel and honor your body, you're going to notice like a change very quickly.
Okay, and also going back to women and
Yeah.
how this is really something that, especially if you have this issue, like I said, we always have a lot of responsibilities. Um, would things like that also work for them? Like if they have issues with like libido and like it works for both, right? It's like a
Yes.
general kind of thing.
Yeah. So like, and this is what I had to explain to like David's wife, because how she came at me, she was like, "You need to advertise this to help that it helps men." And like I had to explain to her, it didn't affect his libido directly, but what it did was it allowed him to have that mental ability to be able to want to do it. You like us women really relate to this. Like if the house is dirty and we've been overstimulated all day and we don't feel like we have help at all and we're doing everything on our own, and then our husbands come home and they try to touch us, we're like, oh, I don't want to do any, but then if you had the help, if you were healing your nervous system, if you didn't feel like the whole world is on top of your shoulders, and you allowed yourself to let the house be messy today, because you know what? the house is messy, but I took the kids to the playground and I did XYZ and I healed my nervous system. One, like first, when the man comes home, you're not so overstimulated and so filled with animosity that if he does touch you, you're like, you can reciprocate that, you know? So what it does is it heals your nervous system and it puts you in a state of, I don't want to use this, but in a state of happiness, you know?
Yeah, of course. So, because obviously, like you said, there's a lot of things that have to do also with just the mind that affect, how our body reacts afterwards. So,
Yeah.
what would you like to close with and encourage those people out there who are considering maybe taking an alternative uh, from away from the conventional medicine and they are interested in trying, herbs like do you have any kind of encouragement or any kind of suggestions?
Yes. Not only with just ADHD, but with anything that you're experiencing, whether it's weight gain, whether it's your hormones are imbalanced, always start with your nervous system. Your body is an interconnected web, but the nervous system is the queen because the nervous system is what directs and commands your hormones. So if your nervous system is in fight or flight and survival mode, the rest of your body is not going to function, no matter like function optimally, no matter what diet you do, no matter um like what medicine you take. And that also just is also like honoring yourself and allowing yourself the rest that you need during certain times, allowing yourself to say no if you can't do something and not feel like your value is directly regulated. I mean, directly correlated to your productivity or what you do for people. And that's something that I personally had to, and I still struggle with it to this day is, like rewiring how you speak to yourself. Like, sometimes you want to relax. Sometimes your body's asking for rest and you don't allow yourself to rest. And if you do, you're like negatively talking to yourself, like, oh, well, you should be doing this. Oh, well, you let this day go to waste. Or, so it's, really healing the nervous system because we spoke about like mind, body, and spirit. And then, focus on nutrition, stabilize, blood sugars, enough proteins, key nutrients, be mindful of, what you are not only inputting into your stomach, but also visually, what you're watching, what you're listening to, what people are saying to you. And then finally, creating consistent routines, not only for you, but like for your kids as well. And structure it in a way that feels supportive, not restrictive. You know, like if you have 5 kids at home, it's going to be impossible for you to wake up at 5 a.m., go to the gym, come home, work on a business and everything like that. Like create something that is sustainable for you and personalized, to you. And to speak about ADHD, ADHD is a superpower and my beliefs. And with most of the people that come my way that have ADHD, there are these high achieving people that are just creative and come up with all of these ideas. And it's not something that we need to suppress with a medication that's going to dull you down. It's something that we just need to understand. We need to understand, why is our brain doing that? How do I support my brain? Because when you support your brain, when you support your nervous system, when you nourish your body, you start to really feel like, a superhero. You start to feel like you can do anything in the world. And I feel like that's how we should all feel on the daily.
Okay. Well, yeah, and I hope that people take this into consideration as well, because like you said, sometimes it's like, we don't give ourselves enough grace to do these kind of things. Well, thank you so much, Hannah, for coming back on the show and just giving that little bit of information as well related to ADHD. Because I do know that a lot of parents and adults as well would like that information. So for everyone or anyone who's interested, I'm going to leave all of her links in the description. And just, be sure to also subscribe to sacredmindshift.com so you never miss another podcast or important event. And yeah, and thank you so much, Hannah. See you next time.
Thank you, Dahlia.